Okay, hello, welcome to Dweller Productions. I'm Pete, and I want to welcome you to my awesomely small shop. But in all seriousness, today what I want to do is cover a quick tutorial, a quick video on how to deal with planer snipe. We've all dealt with it. There's a variety of different methods you can use to deal with planer snipe. The one that I used to use the most, because it seemed to be the easiest, is I would just add on. My planer has about 2.5 inches of planer snipe at the end of each at the end of each piece. So I would add about 4 to 6 inches onto my total dimension so that I could account for that snipe. But what I found was that was going through an awful lot of material. I was wasting a ton of material that I really couldn't use, or I could use it, but it was just a waste. It was so much harder to try and figure out my cut list, the whole 9 yards. So what I ended up doing, I actually got this from Rob Cosman. This is how he does it. After I've done 2 sides of my board and I'm going to run it through my planer, I leave an extra 1/8 to sometimes 3/16 of an inch of width on my board to account for that snipe. And then when I'm done on the planer, I just bring that board over back to the joiner and I joint that one side until that snipe is gone, and it brings me down to my dimension. Now there are some caveats to this. Obviously a planer will get you almost exact dimensions. If you want a board that's 7/8, it'll get you to 7/8. If you want a board that's 3/4, it'll get you to 3/4. Whereas this method, it takes a little bit more calculations, where you've got to know what your joiner is taking off. But as I finish every one of my pieces on a hand plane, that's where I finish my final dimension. So if my final dimension I want is 1 inch thick or 3/4 of an inch thick, I usually get it to that dimension using my hand plane. Takes a little bit more time. I save a ton of material, and you can't beat the finish on a hand plane. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll dress this board here, and I'll show you how I do it. The first thing I was checking was to see if there was a cup in the board so I can joint the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and try not to drop my push sticks and then joint the board. I go pretty slow here because I don't want any tear out. I'm working with Paduke here, and it's a pretty hard wood, so the slower I go, the more revolutions that blade gets in contact with the surface. And I just take as many passes as I need to until I have a perfectly flat bottom. Now that I'm satisfied that the bottom is flat, it's nice and smooth, I'm going to go ahead and joint the edge so it is square to the bottom. After I'm done with this, we'll move over to the planer and do the other side so it's parallel. So here I'm just going to check, make sure my planer is set to the right height. Try and figure out which way the grain direction is going. If I have any tear out, then I'll go ahead and flip the board the other way. And what this is doing is it is now making both sides parallel to each other. Keep going until I get the right measurement. My final thickness is 1 inch, so I want to leave it about 1 1/8 to 1 3/16. And it's important to make sure you measure at the end where you get the snipe. Now that I'm satisfied with it, I'll go ahead and move back over to the joiner and get rid of the snipe. Now back at the joiner, I make sure I put the right face down on the joiner, the part with the snipe. I run it through, and again, I run it nice and slow so that I don't get any tear out, and I'll get a nice smooth finish. Once I'm satisfied that I like the edge, I go ahead and measure, make sure I got my width, and I'm done. Okay, so that's it. I only have one more step to do. Now I'm going to take it over to the table saw, get my final dimension of my width, so that both these sides are now parallel to each other. I have a perfectly flat board with no snipe whatsoever. And one of the keys here is, you know, if you don't get it in the first pass, just do it again. The key here is when you're doing your parts, you're going to do them all at the same time. So if you do one pass over the planer and that gets rid of your snipe, you have to do one pass over every part. If one of the parts you require 2 passes, then you're going to have to check on a nice flat surface. I use my table saw here for the thickness to make sure they match up, and you may have to run those other pieces back through again, not to get rid of snipe, but to bring it back to the dimension of the piece you had to run through twice. So that's it. The last step, like I said, I'm going to trim it to size, and that's it. It's ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it helps. Good luck in your workshop. And again, if you like the videos, hit the button at the bottom to subscribe. And by all means, give me some feedback, what you liked, what you don't like, and if you want to see some future stuff, or if you're looking for information, let me know and I'll do my best to get it for you. So again, thanks for watching Dweller Productions. Take care.